you ever gave up hope, looking for a way to cope, all alone in a castle by yourself, knowing you were made to rule, looking like a royal fool, if you only had someone to help. We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. Here's what I propose we do. I'm gonna count on you, give you all the cheese that you could ever want. If you wanna be your best, put your trap up to the test, buy some super brie and watch the suckers come. Oh yeah, we got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. Yeah, I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. Have you ever gave up hope, looking for a way to cope, all alone in a castle by yourself? We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. Two. You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me, I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry, oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. Just when I think I'm safe, oh.
Hello, MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday on September 20, 2019. Yes, it is 2019. Actually, just the other day, I turned to Laura and I said, what year is it? But I have since gotten up to speed. It is 2019. Hello, everyone in the chat. Good morning. Jacob today. Hi, Dave. No, it is indeed Dave. This week's Feedback Friday, it was originally planned to be an art edition. However, Jacob has an appointment today, so I'm filling in. I want to go over maybe some small tweaks to the recent Hunter profile update that came out not too long ago. And then I'm going to kind of maybe look for some topics of discussion, maybe some Q&A, something like that from the chat as well, so you can kind of start thinking that over. Hello everyone in the chat as well. Sean, Miko, Tarako, Jaren, Arctic, IF, Pokitty, hello. Hello, Dave and Pacman. Yeah, I thought I'd mix up the backdrop. I'm just pointed in the other direction than the blank wall behind me that I usually sit in front of. So I just thought I'd sit at the other side of the table this morning. Well, like I said, I wanted to just kind of quickly go over maybe some updates to the Hunter profile. So since the launch of that new Hunter profile, it's been great to see all the great feedback, definitely on the Facebook page and Feedback Friday. And on other areas as well, Discord, seeing people have been enjoying that overhaul that Param put together. Actually, Param Maxine did the mock-ups, and then Param really spearheaded the implementation of said mock-ups, and actually he poked in on Feedback Friday last week. There were also lots of great suggestions, though, for a few minor changes. There's also been a couple little small issues to correct here and there. Nothing too crazy, but a few little things to wrap up. We've wrapped up that little bit of follow-up work. We plan to put those changes sometime live within the next 2 weeks. So you can kind of expect that probably next week or the following week, depending on how everything goes. I thought I'd do a little quick preview of a few of the patch note items that you can expect with when we put live those little tweaks. We fixed an issue in Larry's loot lexicon where when you click an item on the profile and the pop-up comes to show you the item, the quantity owned would always say 0. I got a pop-up on my computer that I'm going to say not now to. We fixed an issue where Hunter's favorite mice that you can see down there, they would sometimes change and they would look like your mice when you view another person's profile when you go to the Crown tab and back. So we fixed that as well. There were some profiles were failing to load when you played from apps.facebook.com. There was an inconsistent total mouse count on mobile and desktop. They were not the same, so we removed the prize mice as intended from mobile. We created a tooltip so you can see more accurate Hunter title progression down to 2 decimal places. Corrected some mouse thumbnails that were too large. Actually, maybe I should have grabbed the screenshot. I forget the exact mice, but their thumbnails were like this big, where everything else was this big, so corrected that. There was an issue where the King's Crown were not scrollable in the mobile app, fixing that up. Added new toasters as well. Some of them looked a little bit weird for Platinum and Diamond Crowns on the mobile app. Just kind of if you happen to earn a King's Crown, the mobile app pops up and says, congratulations, you earned a King's Crown. So we added a couple new banners there. There was an issue in the mobile app where if you tap a mouse which you have never encountered, it would freeze the mobile app for about 20-30 seconds until you could then dismiss the loading dialog. Fix that up. Optimized profiles on mobile. Depending on how many tournaments somebody had been in, a few of the profiles were loading a little slowly, so we optimized that. We shortened the last online time as well in the mobile app. There was some weird text overflow when it said you were active like 1 minute ago or something like that. So I think we made minute just say min instead. And last but not least, we fixed an issue where changing the... No, this is not the bottom of my list. I got a couple more. Fixed an issue where changing team name would not update on the profile. Ability to unfavorite mice from the pop-up in the mobile app. Spaced out some corkboard UI in the mobile app to make things a little more comfortable to tap. I was mistapping things because they're a little too close together. And finally, actually the last little note here is tapping corkboard messages on mobile will open the corkboard. So a whole plethora of small little tweaks, improvements, and minor bug fixes as well. That's what we've been putting together on the kind of in the pipeline a little bit here alongside Valor Rift and other content. So expect that, if not next week, probably the following week. But we will have to submit a new mobile build, so that makes me think it's probably not going to be next week, but the following week. And now I get caught up on the chat. That was a lengthier list to read than I thought it was going to be. Those crown borders are awesome, yet they are cool. I noticed as well, I guess I can't show because it's a screenshot, when you hover over those mice, the parum polish for alliteration, when you hover over those mice, I like the little shling that it gives there, if I can call it that, the little shine animation effect. Ben asks, did you fix the fave crown swapping bug? Yes, and that was quite the monotonous list I just read off, but that was in the list. So I think I'll post a little summary. Like, I didn't have too much planned today for Feedback Friday, but I do have those kind of early patch notes, so I think I'll just kind of post that as the summary. And now look for topics of discussion from the chat, or questions, feedback, suggestions. Hopefully some hunters here have some interesting discussions to bring up. KDM says Quality of Life Fest, yes, and that was actually, it's very motivating as well to see all the positive feedback from the Hunter Profile overhaul, that a lot of these kind of quality of life improvements are appreciated and enjoyed as well, and that kind of provides good motivation to kind of continue pursuing more overhauls of existing things. And he says the new layout looks nice. Yes, it seems like it's pretty positive feel. We're a little nervous. Sometimes the change is scary. It can kind of happen. Definitely with some of the camp page layout, and obviously that's something you interact with in a more meaningful way, and it already had a degree of polish as well, whereas I think it was unanimous that the existing Hunter Profile was kind of slapped together really quick at the launch of Longtail, and then we just never had time to actually make a proper profile page. So I think that's why it was so unanimously welcomed. FTW asks, what's the next big new event? Well, Valor Rift is quickly approaching. It will be launched in October. It is just about ready. And then there's also the Halloween event. Now, those two do come out somewhat close together, so we are planning on having a bit of a tie-in between the Valor Rift and Halloween. The Valor Rift location will be a stockpile, although you may have to be in a certain state to be able to collect cheese, and then we might add a few little bonus loot drops there as well, so should feel good to participate in Halloween while also progressing in the Valor Rift adventure, should you choose to do so, but feel less kind of compelled than to have to choose to do one or the other. Sally says, we love to read patch notes, good to hear. They're a little bit of work to put together, but I know certainly in other games I play, I enjoy seeing patch notes, even just in software and stuff. I always like reading the what's new kind of for the things I'm really into. I like to dig into the nitty-gritty details, so I think there's similar sentiments from mouse hunters as well. We do our best to put them together. That usually falls on my plate, but what we use is our project management software. We'll kind of comb through all of the resolved tasks that are grouped under that release milestone, and then kind of type up some patch notes from that. Usually works pretty well, but every once in a while there is something that gets done without there being a task made for us in the project management software, and so sometimes that'll slip past the patch note awareness, but we do our best to mention everything that's changing. Sean says, just a suggestion for tournaments, instead of manually claiming the rewards, maybe it automatically claims when the tourney ends. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a technical obstacle with that in terms of anytime we want to process or make something happen to a whole bunch of players all at the same time, that's a bit of a processing bottleneck. So wherever we can, it's more efficient to set a flag and then have you come back and claim the rewards. It also spaces everything out. So rather than this massive burst of having to award items to thousands of players all in the same second, it kind of spaces it out when players return. That's why on a technical perspective, your trap checks work in a similar way, where when you come back, your trap checks are then retroactively processed. So you might notice when you view someone else's profile and they're away, you don't see their trap checks until they come back, and then it actually writes their journal entries in the past, and that's when it actually triggers the code to go on those hunts. Marcus says, suggestion, not the profile, but the inventory page. And then followed up there, said, can we get hidden items visible? That would kind of defeat the purpose of the hidden items, but I think I understand where you're coming from. Definitely kind of in terms of a really sort of involved, in-depth sort of hunting thing. It's kind of interesting to see some of those hidden items. It is kind of functionality that we use to track progress and something like that by using your inventory as a means of almost like a progress bar. So it's like, hey, you have to do this thing 100 times. Something might give you an item every time you do it, so that we can just check your inventory and see, do you have 100 of these little hidden items? Cool, I know you did it. Trigger the next phase of this. Not exactly the most ideal way to do it, but in the kind of 12-year-old code base of MouseHunt, that's sort of a way we've kind of piggyback on one functionality to more easily track some things. So that said, I mean, obviously the intention of the hidden items is they're not supposed to be player-facing items, but players, as they're aware of them, get a little interested in tracking those. So it might be neat to be able to see those on a kind of a view that's specifically designed to show those within the context that they're meant to be. Stejan asks, will Valor Rift get a key piece that eventually costs 1 to 2 weeks to get so the hype can erupt even more? Yes, the current plan is, and actually, sorry, I got my coffee behind me for some reason today. I put up a little teaser image. Let me grab that again. Uh-oh, now I can't find it. So the plan is to involve a couple of the Rift locations. Originally, the first idea we threw out was going to involve the living garden, but then as we kind of fleshed that out a little bit, ran it by more team members, it became apparent that it would be a little bit too daunting of a task if you literally had 0 living garden supplies to go after. So this is a stat item, and it is called the Rift Chronometer. So I'm just searching for this image so I can put up a little snapshot. Maybe, well, I don't know if I want to be big, but we'll see. I guess I'll be big. Make room for images. And this image, for some reason I can't paste when I search for a file name in this software, which is fun. AF68. There it is. So Jacob illustrated this lovely looking time-related piece. That's a timepiece. Where did the chat go? Can't find the chat. There it is. And this we are calling the Rift Chronometer. It will be available for purchase in the Bristlewoods Rift. It will require a few items from some of the other Rift locations as well. So this will kind of create a little bit of a hierarchy where when you get your Rift detector, the Valor Rift is not unlocked. You're going to have to do a few kind of reasonable tasks to accomplish throughout the rest of the Rift plane before you can unlock it. And then the King's Gauntlet Cartographer has opened up shop where he is researching. I guess he already opened up shop. He had a scroll case there, where he is researching a way to detect the more carefully hidden Valor Rift. So you'll go on the first step of the Valor Rift adventure will be to help out that cartographer to discover the Valor Rift. But won't go into too much detail other than it will involve having to run around the Rift plane a little bit. Maybe we'll save that as a surprise. I've totally lost my place in the chat. Brian asks, not entirely profile, but the old school navigation style doesn't have the second countdown like the new one does. I know the old one didn't have it, but seconds would be a nice quality of life improvement. You mean the kind of more colorful buttons? We have kind of ended support basically for that layout, but it's something we could keep in mind. It's a little tricky to go back and update some of the old stuff, unfortunately. Where else am I here? Hussein says hello. Hello back to you. The chat keeps scrolling down. Jiran asks, any news with the next treasure map season? We are working away on that. It is planned for November if all goes according to plan. But Giorgio has been kind of spearheading that effort along with Franco as well. We've kind of gone over on previous Feedback Fridays a few little sneak peeks at some of the new features we wanted to add so we can get some early feedback. If you read through a Feedback Friday summary, probably now from 4 to 6 weeks ago, there might be a list of some of the features that we're pursuing there. Probably the biggest one is kind of a map sniper slot where you can put a bounty on a mouse. Someone joins the map. When they capture that mouse, they get paid the bounty and they're removed from the map. So instead of the treasure chest, they earn the bounty that's placed on the mouse. Annie asks, will the plantain base come out platinum base come out to use the champion charms? No plans on the champion base, on the platinum base coming out. Probably it would be something we'd look into when we finally can do an overhaul of tournaments, but our bandwidth is somewhat limited to try and prioritize that. Chong asks, is there an event map for Halloween? I'm not 100% sure. I know kind of the larger details of Halloween, but I'm not involved in the nitty-gritty details. We've sort of divide and conquer. I've focused most of my attention and energy on Valor Rift. Giorgio and Franco have been kind of leading the charge, focusing on Halloween, as well as Relic Hunter Season 7. As I mentioned earlier too, kind of Maxine and Parham were focusing a lot of their energy on the Hunter profile overhaul. And then kind of the rest of the team as well has been kind of helping out cross on all the different projects, jumping around a little bit to see where needed. But that's kind of who's been kind of focused the most on making sure all the details are wrapped up. Paul asks, the date says September 13. May want to edit before archiving. I usually do that as on my list to edit. And I'm just going to blame Jacob. I'm going to go ahead and blame Jacob. But no, I usually just try to keep it saying MouseHunt Feedback Friday, and then I add the date afterhand. So maybe YouTube is a little bit different now. Maybe I got to put that on the checklist to go over before I even go live. Max says, when did the Gauntlet Potion Tier 8 potion get redrawn? I don't know if it ever did. I think it's always been that kind of shiny gold-looking potion, but I could be mistaken. Stejan asks, could an auto-claim upon refreshing your profile page, like trap checks are loaded, make an auto-turning claim more viable? Yes, that is an option as well. We tend to, and open to feedback here, I tend not to like when you load something and a pop-up comes right in your face. So think about the times where you visited a website and the very first thing they ask is, please sign up to our newsletter. Now, that's kind of annoying in a bit of a different way in that, hey, it's like you're out for dinner and the server asks for the tip before you've had your meal. You're like, well, no, I'm supposed to have my meal and enjoy the service, and then you pay the tip, And it feels kind of cart before the horse when websites ask to sign up before you even know if you like the website at all. But typically I find when I'm sitting down and I want to do something, maybe I'm sitting down, I'm loading the camp page because I want to sound my horn right now. Anything that pops up and distracts me from doing so, I find it creates that a little bit of anxiety, or it becomes annoying because it's in the way of what you set out to do originally. Another example, maybe only developers could relate, but Chrome, when you open up the Chrome dev tools, if they've had an update, it immediately takes over the window and says, here's what's new. Now, I'm interested in what's new, but the thing is I'm usually opening up those tools because I'm about to get to work on something. And so the first thing I do is, I don't have time to read this. Get out of my way because I got work to do. So similar kind of things. We could maybe look through ways of saying, hey, you have something to claim, and it's there much more passively, and then you tap it, you get a little loader, and then you see what you got. You get to celebrate what you got. But at least then you still get to choose when you want to claim that thing. If that rambling makes sense, it might not. Tarako asked, I am way up in the chat. Tarako asks, the hunter gets to see what they got and doesn't get lost in the journal. Yeah, that's correct. That's why too we like you to be present whenever we can to sort of claim things or see something happen. It kind of gives better feedback, so you're there to celebrate that moment. It doesn't get washed away. I know for years we've wanted even to tag some loot drops or mice as special catches to make sure when you get there, there's something to acknowledge and review that something cool happened, so you don't need to actively go back in your journal. But it's been a tricky one to get right, and the limited time in the world also kind of puts limits on things. Ben asks, I just lost my place. Ben asks, Diamond at Platinum Mysterious Rift boxes when? No plans to add that. That would be kind of neat, but that is a pretty lofty goal. I don't even know if anyone has platinumed. Let's see. Let's check the scoreboards. I know people have gold now. I do not. But it has been accomplished. 680 first. Person first has 680 catches. So they're on their way. Are they in the Bristlewood's Rift currently? They sure are. They are pushing that even higher. But something to consider. I mean, you can kind of keep bringing it up as a suggestion, but we might want to do something. I don't think we'd want to put any unique or exclusive rewards in that, because that is an absolutely insane goal to set for yourself. But it might be neat to have something kind of a little different or special to celebrate that without it being anything too exclusive. Winston says, will any of the previous Rift bases be required for the new Prestige base? We're open to feedback there. We're doing a lot of playtesting to kind of get a good feel for how long it takes to fully charge your Prestige base, to see if it's interesting, if it doesn't have the requirements, but realistically it's kind of the best strategy is to go upgrade your bases so that if you're spending thousands of hunts in the Valor Rift, to fully charge up your Platinum base as high as you can get it. then you're going to want your catch rate to be as high as possible. So if you forego that base, then it might not even make it where you can push its stats that high without going back and getting that base first. But still kind of a work in progress. Sejun says Dave is learning and putting his coffee further away from his laptop. Maybe it was subconscious, because I did notice when I put the lid on my coffee, it wasn't quite snapping on perfectly. You know, every once in a while you get one of those cups, and for whatever reason, maybe the lid is a little dented or the cup's a little dented, and it just doesn't snap on. You don't get that nice visceral feedback if you feel it going on tight. So I don't think I quite trust it. Brian says, oh, no more time split runes. That could be. I mean, we could add more time split runes to the box, but I don't know. That's a bit of a decision to think over and review. Annie says, nice key. Well, this is one piece of equipment. Maybe as well we can put up a couple other little teaser pieces for the Valor Rift. What do we got here? We got, right now, the working name is a Rift Temporal Distortion. And then the map piece itself is the Valor Rift map chart. Let me open up those. May as well get those open. Oh, that is the lowest resolution thing I could find. Oh well. Let's add a couple more images. What do we got? We got image B8804. So there's this. These are all illustrated by Jacob. And we got another image. That is to say, we have another image of A076. That's the low. Sorry, you know, I don't have time to find the high. Well, I guess I do, but there you go. There's the map piece. Super high resolution artwork there. KDM says this will come out next week. Definitely not next week. Potentially the following week, but we will see. This has been definitely, I think, the last release that we've had similar sort of challenges with were the Labyrinth. I think thinking back all the way into spring and summer when we were kind of brainstorming areas, and we were struggling to find something that we had a very clear vision for right off the bat, like just something that felt absolutely just right, but was also the same kind of size scope that we could realistically finish it before event season started. And so the Valor Rift, it had a few question marks around it when we kind of greenlit it, which is always a little concerning. Now, we figured out things as we go, but that naturally there's a little uncertainty and there's a little bit more iteration to happen during development, which means things go a little bit slower. And I think the last time we had that was the Labyrinth. Even very late was the Retired Minotaur was added to the Labyrinth release. So that was iterating that happened during development. Mystic says, I'll be in Toronto next week. Is it okay to stop by for a visit? If so, which days would be best? Well, maybe you can reach out either via support when the time comes a little closer, but certainly we've had visitors before. So depending on the timing, it could work out. Swift says, catching the Rift bosses. Again, I think we'll leave it a little bit down to a surprise, but the chronometer there, a few little hints, will be purchased from the Bristlewoods Rift cartographer, and there might be some time-related things that you would need to purchase that. That said, it is, I'll rule out the big expensive rune drop. It won't be that, because that would be a little bit mean, but you may need to add a little bit of equipment to get that going, as well as a couple pieces found throughout the rest of the Rift plane. That's then going to help you find the next piece of the puzzle, which will then help you find the final, where is it? The final piece of the puzzle, the super low-res piece of map piece art. Brian says, catch the Eclipse to unlock the Valor Rift. That was actually one thing we were playing with, is the requirements for the Prestige base, being quite a number of adventures, and one of them being the need to capture the Eclipse, but we're still kind of play testing that as well. Pokedy says, no more time split runes. I don't think we would require any time split runes to unlock the area. That's a little bit too high of a barrier to entry. That said, the new trap does require the what's it called? Time split dissonance trap, which requires runes as well. But you'll be able to get into the area. You certainly don't need to use the time split dissonance if you do not want to get started in the area. Session says, will it be a buy thing or more quest-like? The Dragon Slayer Cannon Crystal Library treasure map. A little quest-like. There's going to be a little bit of time to put in, but nothing too elaborate. You'll be collecting a few resources to then go and pick up a map piece. Traco says, when will we be able to get this ahead of time? At least a week before launch, but potentially 2 weeks before launch. We're going to see. We got a lot of last-minute details to pull together this afternoon. It's going to be quite a busy afternoon, actually. I don't know if we have time to get everything done we're looking to get done. Jong asks, can the list of items that can be purchased with tournaments be expanded? It is on our list. It's a little checkmark list that we go over with every release. But no immediate plans in the future to add more tournament token stuff, but it is definitely a need that is growing. Pokey says, I like the Eclipse Mouse tie-in. Good. You can also, other hunters, let us know of the impression, of what impression you might get. Maybe I can grab a quick screenshot, actually, of that base. Oh, in the shop. Where is it? I closed it. Valor Rift. Going to the Rift. And I am going to the Trapsmith. Alright, and find the chat again. I may have to slide over here again, and media file. I am going to again, nothing finalized, so grain of salt. This is all subject to change. Definitely the reward structure is something we have been playtesting quite a bit. It's kind of one of the final pieces of the puzzle. But kind of wanted feedback on this new base that would become, or has the potential anyway, to become best-in-game base, both inside and outside the Rift, requiring quite a number of the Rift adventures, as well as the Eclipse Mouse, as well as defeating Twisted Carmine, which was the first Rift Mouse in the game where the whole Rift storyline began. So kind of let us know your impressions of that. It's something we're kind of playtesting currently. I better get caught up on the chat. The scroll bar is up here. Annie asks, improving charms are nice. Can luck and power charms be made to work as Snowball Spooky? An interesting idea. I think we have the other charms and we gate them in slightly different ways, but good to know that these, the way these Snowball charms work are interesting. Suzanne asks, maps in Halloween. There's been lots of requests for maps, so I better write that down to make sure that Franco and Giorgio are indeed planning to put together maps. Like capitals, make sure there are Halloween maps. I don't see why there wouldn't be. We've had them in the past. Adamita says no to snipers. Maybe you can elaborate on why you feel that way. Jeanol says, will the Valor Rift be released before the Halloween event? That is certainly the plan, and I am very optimistic we will be able to do that. Like I said earlier, though, we're going to have a bit of a tie-in with Halloween so that they can both be running simultaneously and you can be progressing in both at the same time. Paul says, tell me more about this platinum base, please. Long ago, it would be a tier above the gold base, but unfortunately, tournaments need a bit of an overhaul, and we just have not had the resources to prioritize a tournament overhaul. I lost my place again. Would be good for jungles, maybe. Oh, the plantain base. Maybe you're just having fun with that typo. I assumed by plantain base they meant platinum base, but if it was literally a plantain base, we would definitely need a fruit area, I guess. Yaha says, speaking of map bounties, would it be finally possible to get a whole tab for the mice snipe needed and sort per mice and bounties? Would it be limited to invites, not expand on that direction? I think the original plan for snipers is a little bit more limited than that, but based on feedback then we would look into improving the flow where you could then browse all available bounties on maps, and if somebody is choosing to make it a kind of a public bounty, then people could jump onto the map and kind of also a little bit like a mercenary mode. It's definitely something we see MouseHunt groups on, whether it be on Facebook or Discord, organizing this kind of gameplay and having fun doing so. So having some tools to be able to do it in a more streamlined, predictable manner, we thought would be a good idea. Bram says, first thing I do when I go to the website is filling in the King's Reward. Session says free gold though. Brian says, can we add non-in-game MouseHunt friends to map favorite hunters? That's an interesting suggestion as well. I always invite a hunter, but cannot add them as friends since I've long maxed out the limit since the update. Yeah, I'm wondering too if we could increase the friends list limit. It seems to be performing pretty well, so I did want to experiment with increasing that. Bram says it used to be you also got cheese from King's Rewards. It'd be cool if we brought that back. Yeah, I mean, King's Rewards could use a little bit of love as well. Bring that back with area-specific cheese. That said, we don't want to incentivize the King's Reward too much. Although that said, sort of everyone in the game has this score that they're given. How likely are you to be using a refresh script or a bot? And if that score is really low, you tend to get a smaller reward for claiming the King's Reward as to not incentivize people to seek out the King's Reward. George says, do you become better at catching mice when you have more crown for that mouse? Nope, just purely kind of bragging rights accomplishment to show off on your profile. Ryan says, I'm feeling bored. All of us are also feeling very bored. Can we have a random mini event before the new Rift opened? Dave, thanks. We tried to get a couple of the mini events that are a little bit more turnkey to flip that switch, but unfortunately we had probably just a few days of dev work to fine-tune them and get them to be able to turn back on. Just it was like a Rube Goldberg machine. Some other updates made the mini events not quite as turnkey anymore. So we chose to not kind of lose momentum that we had on Valor Rift and keep pushing forward with that. But definitely hear you, definitely see a sentiment of it's been a while since there's been updates. We're kind of doing our best with the bandwidth we have to produce content as quickly as we can while still being of a good quality. But definitely we'll be looking into, we're trying to find ways maybe we could expand the team as well. The latest addition has been Param. He joined us in January and actually he's come a long way. Like I said, the profile page, he took care of a lot of the implementation of that. So he's really starting to get the hang of development, and hopefully that'll speed up how quickly we can tackle projects. But in terms of another random mini event, I think probably wouldn't have time to turn on a mini event before the Valor Rift map piece would come out slightly before the area is officially launched. I think I need to resolve that. I will never catch up on the chat, actually. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. Natora says, as long as it doesn't use up the older bases, I'm good with anything. Yeah, definitely that's been feedback from players, is to not have, is use things as requirements and not costs, so that you kind of like having that check mark for collecting all the weapons and bases. Jason says, what do you think about providing a mild catch rate bonus for crowns or some other incentive? Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Yeah, use a little exploration and get some more feedback. John says, Dave, how about some new merch? Well, actually, we are exploring that. It's been a bit of a slow and steady progress, but we are looking into getting kind of a MouseHunt store set up as well, with t-shirts and that sort of thing. Kind of overhaul how we do that. KDM says, more Valor Rift sneak peeks, please. We gave quite the extensive behind-the-scenes look at Valor Rift, which was great. Part of what I like about Feedback Friday, it is kind of our chance to get feedback on something before it's even live. And quite often kind of the initial impressions of hunters and their comments help guide our decisions as we kind of fine-tune everything and get all the moving pieces working together. So that was hugely beneficial. This week's, I guess, is some requirements on the base here. It'd be interesting to get kind of initial impressions of that. Jason says, missed beginning any ETA on Valor Rift besides soon. I will admit it is a little out of character for me because I am the, almost to a fault, the over-organized person on the team, hence why I do the project management for the team. And like I said, we've had a few creative challenges with the Valor Rift that have meant it be a little bit more of an iterative process. I usually do pride myself on knowing when things are going to come out well in advance and being able to accurately measure timelines, which is often a challenge in the world of development. But with Valor Rift, we've had a few little creative challenges, so I am certainly confident that it will come out before Halloween. But unfortunately, I can't give an exact release date with this specific release. Ya asks, something I thought to make use of is the average weight of mice caught. That used to influence the points and the gold the mice give, but it kind of fell by the wayside. Now it's just become sort of an interesting little stat. Swift says, this chronometer is used to unlock all future rifts, right? That's kind of yet to be determined. It might be a while before we return to the Rift storyline. We definitely want to add another kind of expansion that's going to follow after Mouse Picchu. That's a bit of a bigger area, so it might be a little too soon to say. But certainly popular feedback from players is to kind of having things unlock in a certain order and just having a little bit of a hierarchy to how the areas flow. So I think we would tie in something in some way. Sean asks, maybe the Prestige base, like the Infinity Gauntlet and other Rift bases and stones where you need all of them to unlock its power. It kind of works a little bit in that way. The Prestige base stats increase based on the highest score you've put up in the Valor Rift. Actually, the highest score in a very certain mode of the Valor Rift increases its stats. Again, subject to change, but we're playtesting where your highest score, the floor you reach, gives plus 10 power per floor that you've reached. And what we call Prestige, we're still thinking of a way to properly communicate that, adds plus 1 luck. So every time the floors repeat, that counts as a Prestige. You start on Prestige 1, and then you move to Prestige 2 after you capture the Eclipse, and then the next Eclipse is Prestige 3, and so forth. And the base right now, I still have that open in a tab. Its stats begin at 490 power, 20% power bonus, and a plus 4 luck bonus on it. But then as you put up a high score in the tower, so let's say you reach floor 44, 44 divided by 8 is 5, so then it would be 5.5, so then it would have 10 luck. So as you reach higher and higher floors, the stats on the base keep going up and up. The theoretical max, I think I closed that spreadsheet. Where is it? I think the theoretical maximum floor at the moment is floor 477. That said, it would be so statistically unlikely to ever occur, I think it's safe to say it's impossible. But just to see, that does put it at 5,220 power, 64 luck. But rest assured, that is extremely impossible to do. To require, I don't even know what the odds of that happening are, but they're so infinitesimal that I think for all intents and purposes considered impossible. Session says, a recalibration of King's Road sounds really interesting. They're pretty boring, low in flavor, something more viable, a lot of area cheeses, however. That's it, you know, they are sort of a themed up way to deter, and they're kind of a piece of the puzzle of detecting auto hunting scripts and stuff like that. So we don't want to gamify it too much, but we have had similar ideas of how to, if we were to redo it from scratch, how would we approach it today? Russell says on the bounty feature, what happens if the sniper never catches his target? Well, we're playing around with a few different options, where there's a time limit on that, whether if they never capture it, somebody else gets the mouse, and then that ends the bounty that's been put on that mouse. But been playtesting a couple different options. Swiss says, wait, what was the end game of the Labyrinth before the minnow was added? There really wasn't anything, actually. It was just collecting more and more of the district loots to be able to purchase different things. Ya says, make a positive-negative multiplier to the gold and points based on the average weight of the mice. That is how it used to work. Before, when the heavier a mouse was, the fewer points it was worth, but the greater gold it was worth. But we just kind of chose to simplify things a little bit and have consistent rewards for the mice. Ryan says, not me now, but I keep doing GT maps, Grand Tour maps over and over, and feeling quite bored there. Yeah, indeed, it's been a while since we've had something new. Lost my place again. Arctic says, only got 5 non-event mice left to catch. Unfortunately, this seems to be the heart's most annoying mice to get. Typically how it goes for saving the hardest for last. Session says, is the prestige basis cost related to the gold you get from the area? Or are those not related? And should I stock up extra gold for it right now? Well, subject to change. Currently it costs 12,170,000 gold. But that's definitely subject to playtesting. Shattering Charm and Scholar Charm should be disarmed after 1 catch. The Shattering Charm only consumes when you capture or when you encounter one of the Shattering Charm mice, so there's no fear of wasting one. Similarly, the Scholar Charm, I think it only consumes, if I recall correctly, when you capture a Chessmaster. Jelena says, are you playing any low-level areas? Yes, actually, this is my, if I get rid of this, where is it? If I get rid of this here, you can see this is my current profile. I am, actually, that doesn't really matter that I got rid of that. I am in the Lost City, and I am trying to push my King's Crown for Twisted Carmine up. I have quite the stockpile of supplies. I just recently, I think I got that Platinum Crown for the Essence Collector. A Rift character that contributes to Hunters. Don't know if I have the context for that comment. A Rift Gauntlet, OMG. There is a Rift Gauntlet, and it is the requirement for a lot of the Rift Charms. Some paid gifts that's not claimed by the players should be refunded to the player. I think the paid ones, I don't know if I think they have a longer expiry time, but that would be a little difficult to accomplish. Swift says there should be a cap to the prestige base. That is what we are experimenting with to determine whether there should be a cap or not. One thing I don't like about having a cap is that depending on how it's displayed, I fear that it's going to create the perception that, well, these are the max stats of the base, so that's a goal to go for. I need to hit the max stats for the base. Now that said, we could put the cap at somewhere that is reasonably obtainable, but it's also kind of interesting where when you have a lucky run, you might just get one floor higher and your base has plus 10 more power, which is not the most significant thing on a floor-by-floor basis, but it all adds up. So that's why I'm a little nervous about the cap. Now, we're really playtesting to make sure that there is kind of a theoretical limit of how high you can go. But that said, somebody might get lucky. There is a little bit of RNG involved in how many times you encounter a very specific mouse inside the gauntlet that doubles your stride every time you capture it. So that's where we got the theoretical maximum floor someone could reach is if they encounter that mouse 100% of the time, other than when you reach the Eclipse floor, you only encounter the Eclipse. So that's obviously statistically impossible to do. Its encounter rate's around 15-20%. So if somebody won that 15% roll 3,000 times in a row, or however many hunts it was, that's impossible, basically. But you would reach floor 477 before the floors get so long that even with that massive stride, you just can't make it to the next Eclipse before running out of stamina. Waiting on Narnia Games Mice for 100% bronze, dying slowly. Yeah, I mean, hindsight, I think it wasn't the greatest idea. We're already a little overloaded in events, and it makes it difficult to kind of keep pursuing other non-event projects. So hindsight, I kind of wish we didn't put those event mice in. Long term, it would be nice to kind of give them a different use, I think. Maybe in a few years. Yeah, that's another thing about the Prestige base is as other Rift equipment comes out, that might help you push 1 or 2 floors higher, which is kind of interesting, I find. Sen asks more like a person type or something else. I think I lack the context there as well. Jeremy says, add queso cheese in the King's Calibration rewards. We'd probably, as a few more areas unfold, it is one way that we add some compression to some of the older areas in the game, so a new player starting today, it's almost an unreasonable amount of content to get through to reach the sort of areas where you're going to be playing with other high-level players. And so one thing we aim is have little things that just kind of compress it just a little bit without, hopefully, we never want to diminish the accomplishments of those areas, but want to make it so that the adventure book is a little faster to get through, just so that somebody can reach those endgame areas a little sooner while there's still being lots of side quest type above and beyond goals to explore in those lower level areas. Atamina says, for me, maps should not be about profit. That's why I don't want snipers. It is different gameplay styles for different people, but it's certainly something that's immensely popular within the mapping community. So, I mean, it's going on anyway, so it's just a way to kind of reduce the amount of scamming and stuff that would be going on with that. Paul says, I meant the fact that Valor Rift has floors like the King's Gauntlet. Null Gauntlet is a thing too. Yeah, it's true. There are kind of two. There's the Gauntlet in terms of a piece of hand armor, and there is a Gauntlet as in something that is a struggle to make your way through. You're kind of running a Gauntlet versus wearing a Gauntlet. Swift says it could round off at some point, maybe a luck cap. Certainly, like I said, if we need to, we will put a cap on it, but I'm kind of hoping that we don't have to put a cap on it, just so that, like I said, it doesn't become a goal that to set to reach that cap. Natora says, what about the idea you mentioned last year regarding making events less important to focus more on permanent content? That plan is unfolding, so definitely the Halloween, we're redoing kind of the ghost ships as well. Lunar New Year as well is pretty turnkey. Kind of certainly planning on doing the same Lunar New Year event. Even with the Winter Hunt, the golems are immensely popular. We're looking probably to repeat the golems. The birthday might need a little fine-tuning, but we're hoping to make that a time when people can earn Super Prix in the game to celebrate the birthday, so that may need a little fine-tuning, but probably do something similar. Sen says, new player bonuses and old player tasks. Yeah, we do try to accomplish that where we can. Maybe Ronza as well is a nice little, obviously not a permanent addition to the game, but by providing some limited edition traps that are a little tier higher than you should maybe have access to at that level, kind of gives people an opportunity to upgrade their equipment. They can kind of save their gold. That helps them move forward a little faster. They can, have a little extra gold to afford a better type of cheese. That speeds them up a little bit. Ben says, what do the prestige base stats look like outside the Valor Rift? Has the exact same stats minus the Rift Stalker / Rift Walker bonus. So it surpasses the Minotaur base when you can reach a certain floor in the Valor Rift. Brian says the toboggan was quite popular too. Yeah, I did enjoy the toboggan as well. Swift missed the toboggan. Great Winter Hunt. Marcus says, make a cap, but don't publish it till it's encountered. I think that would have the same effect, although at least you could rest assured that it is that the cap is possible because someone did it. Time split distance traps point requirement is too high for new players. It should be about in line with where you would land at Archduke, but that is kind of something to keep in mind as we use requirements for other Rift traps. A Haunted Territories come back, it's certainly possible, but it kind of saves us a little bit of time. Like I said, the plan was to kind of tone down the event season a little bit, try to give us more bandwidth to work on areas. And as well as we wanted to revise a little bit of the reward structure. So Halloween being about more earnings, Spooky Aura, a good time to earn gold with the Cursed Gold, as well as kind of a reward track of some limited edition items to earn. Winter Hunt, kind of using that as a bit of the loot pinata, if you can use that phrase, of earning area-specific loot during the Great Winter Hunt. What would be next is Lunar New Year, being a great time to kind of stockpile a bunch of supplies and then just see how many loot drops you can get. So it's a similar vein of a loot boosting event, but it's a little bit more determined by the supplies that you've hoarded to use for that exciting 2 to 3 week period. I believe Birthday comes next. We're trying to find a way to make that about earning Super Brie. Spring Egg Hunt as well, a little bit of a question mark. It's pretty unique in the way it works about collecting the eggs. On that note, we should move on to the trivia because, I just looked up at the clock. Somehow I have been speaking for 50 minutes. It feels like 15 minutes. I tend to do that every time. So trivia question for this week is, how was the Rift Detector originally obtained? So when the Rift Detector was first added to the game, how did hunters go about acquiring it? 48 is incorrect. The Living Garden is incorrect. That is currently how you obtain the Rift Detector, but is not how you first obtained it. KDM's on the right track with the Birthday. Brian says the Mouse Isle Mouse event. That is correct. The Mouse Isle Mouse was added during a birthday event, if I recall correctly. That was part of the 2014 birthday event. Hunters could obtain the Rift Detector for 25,000 gold. So that allowed hunters to access the Rift plane without ever having to capture Twisted Carmine. That was a nice little sneaky way into the Rift. I will put a reward link in the chat. And I will put it up here as well. If I can find where to do that. There we go. Ruth says, please don't take the golems away. I hate the ships, but I deal with it. Leave the golems, please. They are certainly popular, so I think they'll have at least another year. Thanks for the password and long tail to playtest Valor Rift. I don't even remember what the password is right now. Brian says, I imagine golems riding toboggans. Well, maybe that would be a nice little hybrid to throw out there at some point. Swift says, tone down rewards for the golems. They are typically balanced with the amount of time that it would take if, let's say, the Great Winter Hunt is 4 weeks long, and you send all your golems to the Bristlewoods Rift, let's say. It is roughly kind of the benchmark we use as well. If I spent 4 weeks in the Valor Rift, how much loot would I get? And then that's kind of multiplied by like 20%, 50%, kind of depends on how many golems you have going at once. So we kind of use that as a watermark to make sure it's not completely crazy. And do that on kind of an area by area basis. Yay ribs. Now man, ooh, thanks for the base. The sprint hunt is great, says Monica. Ruth says, make sure Rib is involved with golems, tempted to quit when my friend gets 39 golems, hunted on near 500 with nothing. Well, think about the big stash of gold you have built up there as well. It's always available in the marketplace. But that said, obviously, the Rib is a bit of a polarizing reward structure. There are hunters who really like kind of rare and valuable things, and then there's hunters who like more slow and steady, takes a long time to get it, but I know I'm going to get it kind of reward structure. We try to have a good mix of everything in the game, so like the Warpath is similar, where it's kind of a jackpot loot drop, and so just kind of put yourself in the shoes of a player who likes that style of area. When we do sort of the slow and steady, you're sure to get it, we kind of get negative feedback from them as well. So it's a challenge to make everybody happy, and so we try to put a little bit of everything in the game. That said, the Valor Rift is very much, I think it'll appeal very much to hunters who like to put a lot of time into something to get all the rewards it has. The only thing that's going to be on the marketplace is a trap skin, but even those, it's a bit of a time commitment to earn the trap skins, but they're not centered around any rare drops. No ribs for Queso Kaiser Golem. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if there will be ribs in the Golem, but there might be something along those lines. Rib burned down there. That's a fair point. Like, that's a pretty hot rib for a snowman to hold. Are there still plans for a 4.0? We are slowly trying to somehow build a case to work on a 4.0. Still a bit of a pipe dream. We're kind of slowly but steadily trying to ramp up how many people we have working on MouseHunt to the best of our capabilities, but that's kind of the main bottleneck, is just being able to build up enough of a runway that we can afford to tackle such a massive project. Noel asks, when will the new area drop? It will be in October. Like I went over earlier, unfortunately this isn't a release where I have a super concrete release date that I'm immensely confident in. It's been a bit of an iterative process right to the finish line. But we will, the mildly frustrating answer of soon. Q says slow and steady is more preferred gameplay, but that is subjective, right? I mean, everyone has their different opinions on kind of the gameplay that they like, and when we look at how hunters interact with different areas, we see different groups gravitating towards different gameplay styles, and so we try to get a hybrid where we can as well, but try to get a little something that appeals to everyone. So I definitely empathize with how certain reward structures can be frustrating, but then for other players, different reward structures are frustrating. So it's tough to kind of get something that's going to work for everyone. Brian says, perhaps an option to smash maps for the lower difficulty level. We were experimenting a little bit with that, but it got to be a little bit of a can of worms to be able to kind of re-roll and repopulate the mice. And before we go, how do we obtain the map piece? So we're going to leave a little bit up to surprise, but you will need to purchase this, where is it? This lovely Rift chronometer from the Bristlewoods Rift. You'll probably want to make sure you have your various Rift adventures complete and a couple little resources on hand. That said, nothing too crazy, rare, and valuable. That chrono detector is going to help you find, this is mirrored, that's why I keep pointing the wrong way, help you find some of these, which is going to help you find these, but we'll see that's going to come out before the area is officially released, similar to what we did for Mouse Pichu, gave everyone an opportunity to get the map piece. And on that note, as we approach the hour mark, and I told myself this would be a short one, but time flies when you're reading the chat, apparently, every single time. Thanks for joining me, Mouse Hunters. I'll see you next week, maybe. If not, then Jacob will see you next week. Like I said, I was filling in for him as he had some appointments today, so the Art Feedback Friday got changed to a quick little preview and some discussion with the chat. So hope you enjoyed Feedback Friday this week. Happy hunting. Have a great weekend, morning, evening, whenever you happen to be watching this. And we'll see you next time.
such a beautiful you. You're the master of the mausoleum. Look at me, barely at level 3. I am begging for a piece of gold. All the mice, all the terrible mice that you naturally attract to you. I wait with the trap and the bait, and they ain't biting in 1,000 years. I'm waiting on a mouse today. Any help will be just fine. I may not be a hero, babe, but I'm willing to give it a try. I'll lay my trap by yours, and you will be my skull, and I won't care at all because I'm there. Look at you, such a beautiful you. I am caught up in the crazy game. Look at me.